what'd you think of DJ and the news that came out yesterday?
Oh God.
Like we knew he was going to make the move.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I talked about it a little bit, but I didn't know. I've seen 150. I've seen 125. I saw you post the agent statement last night, basically saying it was an opportunity he and his family couldn't turn down. Before the number was attached, I understood that. I saw that statement and understood where he was coming from.
Yeah, for sure.
But if you would have asked me yesterday, Mike, what the number I thought attached was, I would have said 20 million.
Yeah, sure. That seems like a lot.
But yeah, this
120. I mean, first of all, let's not beat around the bush, right? Like it's terrible. Like
what's terrible?
It's terrible that he's making money from a Saudi prince that's responsible for killing a journalist. So like let's get that out of. I mean, like the same people who have funded terrorism for years, like that's okay. That's terrible. However, I can understand from DJ's perspective when you're going to make $125 million. I mean, how can you not jump? Right. And it's not like do we really think the PGA Tour is not going to let DJ back on? Like, I think that they're bluffing, and I think DJ's calling their bluff, to be honest. I really do. Like, the Masters was asked about it yesterday. They have no comment. They're still trying to figure it out, right?
Well, aren't lawyers trying to figure it out right now? I think all the lawyers are trying to make sure that they're covering the mouthpieces on this thing, and that's why you're not going to hear anything until they feel. But I don't know if they're ever going to know anything because this is unprecedented. It's so unprecedented. You get non-competes and breach of contract and antitrust issues out there. And all this money involved. And as you were saying about the Saudi back money, are we saying that all the money coming from the PGA Tour is just beautiful from rainbows and lollipops and all philanthropic?
No, we're not. I mean, these are the same people, obviously, who, didn't let black people play for, 100 years, and they still really don't let women play that often. So, yeah, I mean, like the PGA Tour is not great either. This is just a little bit maybe more tangible and recent, right? Like PGA Tour has a bad history. Golf in general, maybe not necessarily the PGA, so to speak, but golf in general kind of has a bad history. This is much more recent within the last couple of years. And I mean, it's not American.
Right. Well, Phil Mickelson had the comments too about the Saudis and basically being bad people and the whole thing, and that goes into it. But I think it was really easy for me to say, Phil, what are you doing here? You can't say that. You can't have that come out. Right. Yeah. And then you can't also try to play that series against the PGA Tour to make the biggest buck, or at least be smarter about it. Right. Don't have that come out in the whole deal. But Dustin Johnson and Phil Mickelson, I don't know if there could be more polar opposite from a personality standpoint.
For sure. Well, and I mean, look, who knows if DJ even understands, right? Like that, where the money is coming from. Like I'm sure he does, but like, then again, the guy is pretty preoccupied, and like, it's not like he's super plugged into the world. I mean, he's very much into golf. He's very much into his family, and he kind of lives that sort of lifestyle. So I don't know. I mean, I'm sure he's been made aware. His agent David is a very intelligent dude. So I'm sure he made DJ aware of some of the optics, I guess, of this. But,
sure.
At the end of the day, I mean, it's about money, right? Like, that's what it is. If the figure wasn't as high, DJ would be playing the RBC this weekend, right?
But it's not just about money, right? In this case, for Dustin Johnson, it's also about reputation. It's about loyalty, like you mentioned. It's about patriotism for some people, right? Whether or not you feel like the money that he's going to be earning now is basically blood money, right? In a lot of ways. There's so many things that go into it. And then there's the freedom part of this too, right? If we're talking about what is and what's not American, absolutely
Sure.
one of the American ideals is to go out and make as much money as possible, however you can make it.
Absolutely.
And that's what he's doing here.
And I would say, being an American, we can criticize him all we want. I mean, look, I get it, right? Like, I mean, 100 and I mean, I guess you have there 150 million. I mean, I think I would take that from anybody. Like, I mean, seriously, like I think I would take $150 million from anybody. I'm not going to lie to you, but we can still criticize him because he's made enough money already. And I think that's the part that's hard for me is like, dude, you're set. Like, you are set for life. They spent like $3 million on their wedding a couple weeks ago.
Well, they being the daughter of Wayne Gretzky, who's also not hurting for money in the whole thing, right?
Right, exactly. Which is, I mean, but again, now they're married, and so they have, I'm sure they have a joint account. I don't know, maybe.
I would guess the agent would probably advise against that, maybe.
But
I understand where you're coming from completely, right? And that's another very American thing that we all do, I think. Those of us who aren't in that tax bracket, we say, how much is enough? Come on, man. Sure. He's going to bring in former Gamecock golfer Meredith Taylor on this to get a more qualified opinion. Meredith, thanks for joining us this morning. Office still looking good there with all the Gamecock gear.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for having me. We're here to talk about the U.S. Open, right?
U.S. Women's Open, right? Sure. We got that going on this week as well. We'll get to it. But I wanted to get your initial reaction. We talked about Phil Mickelson and the mess that he was all a part of and the PGA championship stuff last time you were here. And you nailed it, by the way.
Right.
You basically gave Tiger his script about legacy and the whole thing. Tiger did his press conference. Nice work. What do you think about Dustin Johnson hopping on this series?
This was a bit of a curveball, if I'm honest. When the field came out, I was anticipating the field to be basically what it looked like, other than DJ, guys that are probably on the tail end of their career, older guys that are probably not going to have the opportunity to win again on the PGA Tour. It made sense to me that those guys were on that list. DJ was a bit more of a curveball for me because I still think that he can win on the PGA Tour. So if I'm honest, I was kind of shocked to see his name there, but then you look at how much money it is and then you're not shocked at all. But it's also not really black and white either. And I think that's what people have missed is it's a lot more nuanced than just, hey, I'm leaving for money. There's a lot more questions. And I haven't seen anything this morning, so forgive me if his team did come out with a statement. I haven't seen anything yet from DJ or his camp.
His camp only has said basically this was an opportunity he felt like he and his family couldn't turn down.
Okay. It's going to be interesting to see over the next several months what the kind of legal ramifications are, in my opinion. Does the PGA have a non-compete? Do his contractual obligations as far as the RBC? Just with my background, the more I started thinking about it, the more I started thinking about the breach of contract issues. So that stuff, I'll be interested to see how it plays out. I know it's really early, but to leave, when the commissioner of the PGA Tour had said, listen, if you leave, you're suspended and probably a lifetime ban from the PGA Tour. So it's a little more nuanced. I mean, I don't know. I mean, hypothetically, what if this Saudi league implodes next year? You can't come back to the PGA Tour and your corporate sponsors are not going to welcome you with open arms again. So it's a little more nuanced than just, hey, he's leaving for money and it's generational wealth. And so there's a lot of things still to come, I think, out of this storyline.
No doubt. But when you say generational wealth, what's that number in my mind? That's like
I thought he already had. Let's be honest. I mean, where has his wealth come from? The PGA Tour,
sure,
corporate sponsors, brand sponsorships, club manufacturing deals.
But even as we say that, though, it didn't just come from the tour, right? It came from him winning on the tour. They didn't just give it to him.
100%, absolutely. but that did give him the platform to win and get the media attention that brings the dollars, that brings the corporate sponsors. And so, yeah, it's a little more nuanced than just, yeah, he's piecing out and going to get his money. You can't blame him for it. I get it. I understand both sides of the argument, but I'll be interested to see. A lot of people have said, well, he can still play the majors. I don't know about that, because they're all in conjunction with the PGA Tour. I understand the PGA of America runs the PGA Championship. The RNA runs the British Open. The USGA is the US Open, and Augusta National is Augusta National, right? And he's a former champion, and they take care of their former champions. They always get the invitation to come, and it's the fraternity of fraternities, the champions dinner at Augusta National. So this is all new to me. I have no idea
it's just
how this is going to play out.
Yeah, it's new to us, right? And then
Right.
even as you were talking about it, you're talking about non-competes and breach of contract. Certainly antitrust would have to come in, I would think, somewhere. The PGA is going to put up a stink, right? And they go in and they say, hey, don't let this guy play. And then I would imagine legal representation from Dustin Johnson will say, well, you can't do that. That's not how the world works. You can't just impose your will on everybody. Yeah, it's a mess.
I don't know. It's a mess.
As you talked about it, it seems to me like Dustin Johnson came to the conclusion that this move was going to be just going to outweigh everything that playing it safe, if you will, staying on the PGA Tour would have offered him certainly from a financial standpoint. But I mean, what's the worst that could happen here? He can't go play golf after this Saudi league implodes on the PGA Tour. Well, certainly you can just go play exhibitions, right? I mean, this is not the first time.
Let's be honest. He could leave right now and go down to Myrtle Beach and be on a boat. I mean, he's comfortable already at a point where he's got generational wealth at this point. So to go triple that.
Yeah, we got to stop right there. Okay, this comfortable, just my eyes popped out of my head when we said comfortable.
I know.
Generational wealth, I thought might have been like $1 million. 1 million is what I was thinking. It's probably, I know for those of you who actually make money for a living, you're probably thinking, hey man, that's not generational wealth. It's probably more like 3 or 4 or something. I got no idea. But when you're talking about 150, like that is so mind-boggling to me that it seems that we would all be a bit disingenuous to wag our finger and say, how can you do this? How can you turn your back? How can you not be loyal, kind of deal?
No, I understand. And I see both sides of it. But, having a background with working in the financial world, working with corporate sponsors on the player side, there's a lot more questions than answers at this point. So it's tough to, I mean, the thing that was kind of, I didn't like about this decision is the timing of, when you have a corporate sponsor that's been loyal to you and has allowed you to do what you do, and have no financial worries, like RBC has been for Dustin Johnson over many years. The contractual obligation would be to play in the RBC Heritage, which he's always going to play in. It's in South Carolina. That's our tournament. And then the RBC Canadian Open is next week. And they plan all year for that event. He is going to participate in that event. They plan their marketing around it. They do commercials around it. They put gobs of money into he's going to give his appearances, like all the things that come with being a brand ambassador that you were contractually obligated to do. And he up and leaves. And it doesn't seem like the right move, when you look at it in that perspective. Like he's just jumping ship and headed over to with the tournament being next week. I was like, man, that's a tough one for RBC to swap. But this is all new to me. It's tough to. It's a lot more nuanced than just being black and white. That's for sure.
No doubt. And just to play devil's advocate, like their RBC hasn't done this out of the goodness of their heart because they really like DJ. They've done it because he's a valuable commodity for them.
Sure.
So they've used him in a business sense as much as he's used them. So to me, this comes down, it's a lot like this David Tepper situation in Rock Hill. Like that's the business move you do. You file bankruptcy. You don't pay more than a court makes you pay, right? The the tricky part about that is now you actually have to turn around and smile at your fans and say, hey, come buy tickets and come support our team and the whole deal. That's not something that DJ has to do. All he's got to do is play golf. And I think if there's one thing that is universal across the board about Dustin Johnson is that he loves to play golf. And the other stuff, even though he has been that commodity and been that ambassador and the whole thing, I think he's kind of done it because he could. But I think we all realize, like, that ain't his thing, man. He just likes to go out there and hit it far and win money and then go back to doing, what he would prefer to do and stay out of the limelight. And that's why I think this is so much different, Meredith, than the Phil Mickelson situation, where Phil seems to love the attention, right? And then he has his gambling stuff going on, and he's had the insider trading stuff and the whole deal. And then he said what he said about the Saudis. That's why it's so much different here. And man, I can see all kind of different perspectives here. Ultimately, I think I come to the conclusion in my mind that I don't blame Dustin Johnson a bit for doing this. Maybe it's the unrestricted free agent in me right now that says, hey, somebody's got to stand up to the man being the PGA Tour here, who tried to have everybody fall in line when competition came up. And I get that. That's what they had to do. But Dustin Johnson felt like he was in kind of a different category, and I think he is. The $150 million kind of shows it. You got a problem with that kind of mindset, it looked like?
I mean, I don't know if I have a problem with it, but I see the other side of it too. Looking at the PGA Tour and what has given him this platform to play golf for a living and to obviously follow the legends of Jack Nicklaus, Arnold Palmer, Watson, the history and the legacy. I understand it's generational wealth and he's doing what's best for his family, so to speak. But then you're going to have to deal with the ramifications of that in terms of no FedEx Cup, no Ryder Cup, no, you're suspended, you're banned, your lifetime ban is something that I don't know. It's something that I probably, hopefully his team had sat down with him and said, hey, okay, you can do this, but here's what you're leaving behind.
No doubt. A lot of that is there. Do you think that's the right thing for the PGA Tour to do?
Yes.
Why do you think that severe ban out there is the right thing for them to do when golfers asked for exemptions here to play in this competing series?
Well, they probably have a non-compete. That's what I'm saying. It's too early to tell. There's more questions than there are answers so far. I haven't heard from the commissioner. He's been pretty quiet recently, and I'm sure that's because of legal issues. So I just don't know the answers to a lot of these questions. And I'm sure over the next couple months, we'll get more from the tour on, hey, there's a reason we said if you leave, you're suspended, and there's a lifetime ban, and all of that that comes with probably like a non-compete and legal issues. And then obviously him leaving RBC, there's probably a breach of contract there. And it's just going to be interesting. I don't know. I don't know how it's going to turn out, but I see both sides for sure.
Well, the only thing I can add to that from the RBC standpoint is I know they've come out and said that Dustin Johnson and Graham McDowell no longer affiliated. They're no longer.
You think?
Right. An obvious.
I mean, and left them hanging with their marquee tournament next week. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they would drop him.
And apparently, Dustin Johnson has played in some Saudi Arabian events before and done it without the RBC patch on his shirt for those weeks. So
I've heard that as well.
And I wanted to mention this before too. Like, this isn't completely unprecedented that golfers, big time names, get paid a ton of money just to go play, to go appear places outside of the PGA Tour. I think where we're unprecedented here is the amount of money, first of all, and that they've organized this series of events to pretty much compete against the PGA Tour and try to lure these guys in. What was it, a couple of years ago where it came out the PGA Tour was giving bonuses to the big guys who clearly attracted audiences to their events, right? And
I'm sure.
And I think they had to do it because the rumblings of this series were coming up and saying, hey, you guys aren't getting paid what you're worth. This deal that the PGA Tour is basically taking advantage of you so they can make money. Who would have ever thought that Dustin Johnson would be the guy? Like if ever there was someone miscast to be a guy to kind of stand up against the man, right? Isn't just I would say Dustin Johnson would be the last guy I would ever expect to be kind of the spokesman for the little guy standing up to the PGA Tour, and how he handles this publicly will be fascinating. Kind of
Right.
you would mention like what he chooses to say about it, which I would imagine would be very little, right? But
yeah, if you know DJ, it'll be very little.
right, it's just so fascinating on so many levels, and
It is.
man, then the duration, like how this ends up turning out, if this ends up becoming anything, because you mentioned that 42 person field, and ain't that impressive from a golf perspective.
I loved Rory was like, yeah, that's not very impressive.
Right. Which is kind of what has been now set up in golf, right? You got the guys who are staying loyal to the PGA Tour, basically basically everybody, right?
Yes.
Who is in their prime, on the upswing,
yes.
for sure, or anywhere close to it. I should say anyone that's not Dustin Johnson that's anywhere close to their prime. And then you got international guys who clearly love this opportunity, like Sergio, who didn't mind saying it on the course a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
Guys who have a little bit of age on them, like Lee Westwood and Louis Oosthuizen and the whole thing. It makes a lot more sense for them. And then the one outlier is Dustin Johnson.
Yeah, that was the only curveball for sure.
Unbelievable.
The rest of the guys, it made sense. They're not going to be competing with the young guns of Scotty Scheffler, Colin Morikawa, Rory, Justin, Jordan. So many guys, and I think that's the other thing lost in this is the PGA Tour is so healthy and so talent rich right now. That's where you compete against the best in the world. That's the tour, and so that isn't changing anytime soon.
Yeah, that has always been what it is, right? And now competition comes up. I mentioned, we've seen this in other sports and the whole thing. We've seen owners and players go at it all the time from a financial standpoint in baseball. In football, we've seen lockouts. We've seen it in other team sports. The crazy part about golf is it's so individualized, right? And we've never seen this before. Man, how it all plays out is going to be crazy. And then how we look at it from the Columbia, South Carolina perspective, having seen and known Dustin Johnson and his dad, the Gamecocks, and being a Hall of Famer and the whole thing, or his grandfather, excuse me. It's you couldn't make this up, I don't think, in so many ways, Meredith.